The Last Dance. Today, I want to talk about some observations I had from this movie. I have to say that I do not like basketball. I really don't. But I think Michael Jordan was one of the most entertaining people ever in sports to watch. He may be my favorite athlete of all time. And I was a little concerned starting to watch this documentary. I think it was put on by ESPN. I watched it on Netflix. I was a little concerned because a lot of people said it didn't make Michael Jordan look like a good guy. It didn't make him look, it didn't hold him up. It wasn't a puff piece, if you will. And I was a little concerned. And there's been some interactions. I've seen him. I used to, back when I was making my way through school, I was bartending and doing banquet serving at a 5-star resort that he played golf on a lot. And I talked to the caddies that caddied for him. He's a great guy. They said tipped well, fun to hang around, really great guy. And so I was kind of hesitant because I remember him as a kid watching the basketball games and just being in awe of what he was able to do and what he was able to achieve. And I knew him later in life from the golfing that he did at the resort that I worked at. And by all accounts, he seemed like a just all around good guy, great athlete, to say the least. And I was a little concerned, but I have to say, I like him even more after this. We'll talk about that today. Welcome to How to Build a Tent, the podcast, and how to make you successful. My name is Matt Williams. Thank you for listening to the show, sharing the show with a friend, subscribing on YouTube. Really appreciate all of you guys, your podcast listeners, your YouTube listeners, and those of you who watch it on social media sites. If you want to become a member, go over to flfnetwork.com, put in HTBT in the memo field. You'll get that 15-ounce mug for free. Get a shirt, get tons of other benefits, and you will get $100 off our conference that is coming up in October in Nashville, Tennessee. Do not miss it. It's going to be a rowdy good time, as they call it. I don't know why are we the rowdy network? I don't know. Maybe one of you can email me, Matt at howtobuildatent.com, and let me know, or you can find me on the social media sites, How to Build a Tent. Let me know on that as well. All right, let's talk about some of the things about The Last Dance. And let me just say, I highly recommend watching it. There is cussing in it, which I have to say I enjoy. I don't like when it's censored. I don't like when people hold back. I want people to act how they're going to act. I want people to be as real as possible. And so I just enjoyed it all around. The only thing I did not like was Barack Obama was in it. And they made this big, huge thing about, his cultural impact, and they tried to bring the race issue into it. And it's funny, they even gave him a hard time for that one famous line he had when they asked him to endorse a Democrat running in, I think it was Georgia at the time. And his famous line was, Republicans buy sneakers too, or Republicans buy basketball shoes too, saying that I'm not going to alienate half of my customers by going and endorsing someone. And he said it in this documentary, which I really appreciate. Even to this day, he didn't really back down from it. And he said, look, I'm not a politician. I'm a basketball player. Oh man, the good old days when the NBA wasn't political. The franchise player of franchise players understood his role. I absolutely just appreciated it more from him. But it was just like, of course you have to have Barack Obama in it because it's ESPN, So that wasn't enjoyable, but it's like, what did Barack Obama have to do with his life? Why is he a commentator on Michael Jordan? It made no sense. It was totally just a political thing. It was crazy. But the thing that absolutely stood out to me the most, and I want you to think about, is his work ethic. And it starts off talking about, in the beginning of his career, like high school, he was getting cut. He wasn't just this magical player. He wasn't the best from the very beginning. He got cut. Michael Jordan, the greatest player of all time, got cut. But he had this mindset throughout his life, even to this day, no doubt, where he would do whatever it took to be the best. He wanted to be the best at everything he did. He was competitive, and he had the work ethic to do it. And this is the thing, the facade or the mirage that we get a lot of times when we just watch the results of athletes. That is the games themselves. We don't get to watch their practices. We don't get to see them throughout their days, their diet, their sleep habits, their practices, their weightlifting, and all of these different things. And in fact, it goes through and talks about in this documentary a lot of times, which I appreciate. It talks about how he didn't do drugs. He didn't do drinking like the rest of the team did. He didn't hang out with the girls that were sleeping with these players at the nights. He was focused. He was determined. He made sacrifices to achieve what he wanted to achieve, to be the best player in the world. And he did it in a large part because of his work ethic. And yeah, of course he had raw talent. And yeah, of course he had the gifts that God gave him, the body type, the mentality, the smarts, all of those things. But his work ethic was what got him to the level that he was at. And it even talks about some of the championships that they lost, that it just fueled him even more. And the next day he went back and he worked even harder. So the work ethic was important. And then the second thing was his mindset and his attitude. And I'm going to talk about this in two parts, which was noticeable for me, or notable. One is his own mindset with living in the moment. And they hit on this on the show. And I think this is so great, is that he didn't let the past impact the now. And he didn't let the future impact what he was going to be doing and thinking about in that moment. And what I mean by that is he wasn't thinking about the shot he missed last game. He wasn't thinking about the records that he had last year, but he was in the moment thinking about the task at hand. And he didn't get overwhelmed by the moment, overwhelmed by the statistics, overwhelmed by the 6 championships, overwhelmed by the champion or the teams that he lost to, the Detroit Pistons, over and over again. But it was about that moment in that game and how could he win? How can he achieve his goal in that moment? And just think about that in your own life, is not thinking about the past failures you've had. Maybe if you started a business, maybe you've lost money in the market. Maybe you tried to get a promotion and you didn't get it. Not thinking about those things, but thinking about where you believe God has you, the vision for your career, the vision for your life, and how can you achieve that in the next goal and the next step? What's your next goal? What's your next step to get there? And focusing on that and drowning out the noise, because so often we can get distracted by those previous things that should have no holding on you. You should take those things, learn from them, and then move on to make you a better person. You should be working and building off of those lessons learned and then investing that into the present moment. And that's what he did. He would lose a game. He would lose a season. He wouldn't get the championship. He didn't get the MVP. And that fueled him in where he worked harder. He put on more weight. He became a more versatile player. As he got older, he learned that he had to use more of his mind than his muscles. He had to use more of his mental game than his physical game. And he built on that, and he didn't use it to distract him from the moment. And I think that is really important. And then the second thing is, and it was funny. This is just such a product of our time, this question. They asked him, does it ever bother you that you weren't considered the nice guy? And I just want to tell you guys this. Honestly, if you want to be successful at anything you do, if you aim to be nice, you're never going to be successful, because nice doesn't do you any good. There are times where you have to be what is interpreted as mean, interpreted as not nice, where you have to tell somebody, hey, you're really slacking. You need to pick it up. Hey, if you want to be successful on this team, you better show up to practice on time. Hey, you better start showing up to your business meetings. Hey, you better start being having more communication. Now, obviously, you say it in constructive ways. You're not like being mean, or you're not being this destructive, this hostile person, this toxic person. But what he was doing, and Michael Jordan, he was constantly goading people. He was constantly pushing them. He was getting on them if they weren't working hard enough. And they asked him, like, are you scared that your teammates didn't think that you were nice? And you could tell he didn't care. And if he was worried about that, he wouldn't have been pushing his team and carrying his team along to get them to where they needed to be to have the championships that he had. Which leads me to another strong point that I need, or that I want to point out, is that the reason Michael Jordan was as successful as he was with all the rings that he had, opposed to other players that kind of be compared to him, LeBron James and so forth, Kobe Bryant, all them, the reason he was able to do his repeats that he did and have 6 rings is because he had a strong team. And he was responsible in a large part for that. Yeah. What's his name? Coach Jackson. Oh, man, I forgot his first name. Keith Jackson? Daryl Jackson? Uh-oh. Someone let me know. Having one of those moments again. Coach Jackson, was obviously part of that. But so was Michael Jordan. He was one of the leader. He was the leader on the team. He not only was focused on making himself better, but he knew he needed a team to do that very thing and to fill roles. And he understood that. Like Scottie Pippen, and it's so sad, man. He just never got paid. And just the humility for Scottie Pippen to do what he did, that just says the world. And they wouldn't have been able to do what they did without Scottie Pippen. And I think they all know that. But he was able to swallow his pride and not get paid what he did rightfully deserve, and was able to contribute and be the best number 2 in the history of the game by far. But Michael Jordan understood the value of roles to be filled and the need for them to rise to the occasion, for them to be focused, and for them to be driven just like he was. And what happened was the team took on his personality. And they don't really say this in the documentary, but this is what happened. His drive, his dedication spread to the team, and they took that on and were driven and had the discipline, had the work ethic, and had the goals and the aspirations to achieve greatness just like he did. And you can do that too in your teams. You can do that too with the people you lead as well. And the last thing I wanted to just hit on briefly, and it's kind of disappointing, quite honestly. Throughout the whole thing, there was this tension between the general manager. The team, the coach did not like the general manager whatsoever. And at the end, Michael Jordan says, it would have been really nice if they would have let us come back and try for a 7th. And I was just thinking about that. The politics, the egos, the pride, the agendas can all get in the way of success, can get in the way of achievement. And the more that we can put on Christ, crucify ourselves, humble ourselves, don't let our pride get in the way, don't let our egos get in the way of allowing the team to work together and accomplish future goals. That's how to do it. You can't let yourself get in the way of things. You can't let your agenda get in the way of the goals of the greater team. Especially in larger corporations. And that happens so much. It's so easy. It's so easy to get attached to your work. It's so easy to identify with your work that it has to be your way or you're not important. It has to be your way or you're insignificant. It has to be your way or your job's at jeopardy. But that's not true, guys. That's not true. And if we could just lay aside our agendas to align with the team's vision, to align with the team's goal, to enable other people, sometimes maybe it does require you to stand up. Sometimes it requires you to lead if you're in the leadership position. I mean, I'm not talking to CEOs here, because obviously you are setting the vision and you are setting the direction for your company. But in other cases where there are just times where you need to submit, there's times where you shouldn't be the leader. There's times where you shouldn't have your way, and that's okay. And that's okay. And the more that people can work like that and work together, the greater things could happen. Maybe we would have seen a championship number 7 for them, but we never know. We'll never know. It's amazing that a team that won 6 championships was, deconstructed, rebuilt before they got a chance for number 7. Now, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, it is better to trade. It is better to trade a year early than a year too late. So even me saying that and being a firm believer in that in sports, that still is just like, do you really do it? I don't know. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did the GM make the right decision? Did he not? I still think that the reasons for it were not the reasons that you would do it. That is that they were done, that the talent was all gone. I don't think that was true necessarily. It was definitely the pride thing. So I'm not negating anything I just said about all that. But it's an interesting thing. So I would highly encourage you, again, watch it. There's language in it. And I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. We'll talk to you next time. God bless.